What is tone of voice? So tone of voice essentially is how you say what you say. So most content marketers spend a lot of time looking at what you're going to say, the story itself. Tone of voice is to take that aside, and it's how you say what you say. One way to think of it is it's the user experience of content, or it's a big, big part of the user experience, is tone of voice. Tone of voice is so important and so undervalued because it's a force multiplier in content marketing. I mean, it's literally a budget multiplier. If you spend $100K on bland, middle-of-the-road content, you could get, if you're lucky, $100K back, probably more like $20K or something in return. But if you do it with some sharp, compelling, strong story with a great voice, that could be $1 million, that could be beyond. Tone of voice is the secret ingredient of great content marketing. And, everybody focuses on, I like to think of it as an equation of story times tone of voice equals impact on the market. And the multiplication sign is what's so important there, because if either of those is 0, you're really not going to get any impact at all. But if you've got both, a good story and a really strong, clear tone of voice that people like, you're onto a huge winner. So tone of voice consistency is always a big challenge. The bigger the company, the bigger the challenge. If all your writers are in one room, it's not that hard. The first part about creating consistency in tone of voice is probably hiring the people who talk like you talk and want to talk that way. So hiring is the first decision. Then of course it's choosing the writers, and then it's also training the writers on tone of voice and actually deciding to actively manage it instead of just saying, well, he's a good writer, it'll happen, and she's a good writer, it'll happen. It doesn't happen unless somebody actively manages it and decides to make it something you're going to teach and train and capture. So for aligning tone of voice with the business and also maintaining consistency, the bigger the company, the more it becomes important to have a tone of voice guide. And it's like a brand guide, but it's a voice guide. And you have examples in there, and you show people how you talk and how you don't in different contexts. And in that guide, you connect the tone of voice to the brand. So you talk about who we are, what we're all about. Because really, when you talk about tone of voice, you're not just saying, the question isn't, how should I say this? It's, who am I? Who are we? What is this brand? And then the answer, how should I say it, kind of comes out. And so in the guide, I think it's a good idea to connect the two. Don't have a brand sitting out somewhere and a tone of voice guide somewhere else. Put them together and show how the tone of voice emerges from the brand and feeds the brand. But having a tone of voice guide is essential. And for me, the first rule of tone of voice guidelines is that they should be written in the tone of voice. I've seen dozens of tone of voice guidelines where they're written in corporate speak, exactly how you wouldn't speak. And for me, the tone of voice guidelines should be your best example, very best example of your corporate tone of voice. It should be in your tone. And so you get your best writer to do it, the one who really gets the voice, so the guide itself is a demonstration. Well, not every employee has to read and know the tone of voice guides, but really the customer-facing ones probably should. Certainly the writers, certainly the editors, and certainly the approvers of all content marketing. Those are the big three that carry the tone of voice. The writers, they need to be trained on it. The editors, anyone who's going to commission content, and anyone who's going to approve it. If it's a senior manager, senior executive, they might not sit in on your 1-hour tone of voice briefing, but you can get them to approve your tone of voice briefing that you're going to put every writer through. And then you don't have to fight that battle every time you do a piece. It's on voice, it's off voice, is it on, is it off? You nail that down ahead for everybody, and then it becomes much, much easier. Yeah, I mean, in a way, tone of voice has been a huge part of Velocity and our success as an agency. I mean, we've used it effectively for clients, but for us it's been transformative. It's changed our business. So early on in our life as an agency, we started realizing we work really well with a certain kind of marketer. And it wasn't a demographic or anything, it was an attitude, a psychology of a confident, ambitious marketers who really wanted to do something and had some power in their company, right? Those guys we do great work for. So we use tone of voice to get out there and produce content about content marketing, but with a really strong tone of voice that would attract our kind of marketers, like-minded marketers. It's like a pheromone you put out, and the people who respond are your kind of people. And the side benefit is it also alienates people who we'd be terrible for. So it actively alienates the kind of clients that we wouldn't enjoy working with, they wouldn't enjoy us. So it's nice to have content almost like tone of voice can be a filter, not just a magnet, but a filter of your opportunities. So the ones who come through are really the kind of people you want to work with. So for us, tone of voice has changed our business quite a bit, doing content with a strong, clear, and distinctive tone of voice. Okay, so tone of voice and personas are obviously really closely linked because you have to start with who you're talking to, and you also start with the context of the conversation, the medium, or the situation. You might have a chirpy, friendly tone of voice, but if it's a customer service interaction and they're all pissed off at you, that tone of voice is not going to be right. You have to find a way to flex for it. But it really, yes, it comes from the brand out, but it has to come from the persona in as well. What kind of people are you trying to attract? So in a way, the velocity example I gave was a persona-driven example. We wanted that kind of person, and the voice was designed to do that. It wasn't purely us out, although to be honest, it is how we like to talk. So it's nice when those two things align. But I do think keeping your personas and your target audience clearly in focus is a really big guide to getting your tone of voice right. How do they talk?